I have been working together now for the past few months, because both of our Jacks brought us together. So obviously my brother Jack, and then Carli's partner. So you lost your partner Jack, and he passed over at the end of August. And so yeah, it really means that it's only been 2.5 months for you, and we've pretty much been working with each other for a large portion of that duration, which was something that you were a little apprehensive about in the beginning, wasn't it? Because it was so soon for you, and in how we met. And so I guess to start really, Carli, thank you again for being here, because these stories honestly are so powerful and they're really impactful. And a lot of people message me afterwards and they're always really grateful and they don't feel so alone. And, you know, they really are reaching out to people. As much as our painful experiences are hard to talk about, they really do make a difference to other people. So I guess to start, Carli, if you feel comfortable, then yeah, to tell us a little bit about Jack.
So Jack was just a great person, and he was like my entire life. We were living together, and he had just started a new job. Everything was just going great in his life. And then basically what happened was he just completely out of nowhere kind of switched mentally, and it happened really quickly. There weren't any signs leading up to it. I'm still not entirely sure what caused that mental switch to happen. But within an hour of that happening, he took his own life. And I was there when it happened. And it was just the trauma of losing him and the trauma of being there when it happened and witnessing that were just so horrific and overwhelming for me. And I just felt so lost and helpless, and I really didn't know like how it could possibly get better after that.
And this is something that we hear so often of now as well. I mean, especially through work and a lot of these groups and communities and everything that I'm a part of, and as you are as well, of hearing that there are people where it's very sudden, where there are no cues, no issues or mental health issues or emotional issues or anything that are leading up. And, you know, Jack even said something to you about how his mind had felt as if something had completely changed in his thinking, and like he couldn't rationalize what was happening. And what was that he was saying to you again?
He was saying to me that something, or are you talking about like during our healing session, or when he was still here?
When he was still here, that his mind didn't feel right.
Um, yeah, he was saying he basically was just not there at all. Like I could even see it in his eyes, like he wasn't there. He wasn't thinking rationally, talking like himself. He really was just trying to like completely get himself alone and telling me to get away from him, which wasn't like him at all. And I could just completely tell that something had taken over his mind. And he really was just not in any kind of control at all.
Yeah. Yeah, and this is something that I also feel deeply in with what happened with my brother. And I have worked with a bunch of people now actually who have said something very similar, where there has been nothing leading up to it, and just being a really sudden change, as if something very dark had come over and taken over their minds and taken over their body. And that yeah, and it was just very sudden. And I'm so sorry that you also have gone through that. It's just completely horrific. And so from there, I mean, one of the key things that we were working through together was obviously yeah, like severe hallucinations and flashbacks, which I can also really relate to. And so they are very common, obviously, when we've gone through what we've gone through. But tell us about that. I mean, how severely were you experiencing them?
I was experiencing pretty severe flashbacks, and it really would come without warning sometimes. I mean, it would just kind of pop into my head, and I would feel like I was back in that moment and in that situation right before he took his life. I would feel it physically, like I would feel like it was a little bit harder to breathe, and I would feel my nerves kind of going crazy, and it just felt like I was stuck there. And no matter like how hard I tried to think about something else or distract myself with something else, I couldn't get out of it, and I was still stuck in that moment.
What's we'll talk about obviously working together and healing through those in a bit, but after that, I mean, what kind of support were you offered after Jack passed away? Did you have a lot of support around you or professional help and friends and family?
hmm
Like, did you kind of get what you needed from your friends and family at the time?
I definitely did get what I needed at the time, even though it felt like nothing was really going to help me or nothing
Yeah.
was going to make it better, unless I had Jack back with me. But immediately I had a bunch of friends around me. I had family with me and reaching out to me. I had even friends of Jack's that I had never met before reaching out to me and offering support. Um, and then I also, within a week after his passing, started seeing a trauma therapist to try and work through some of the issues I was going to have and I was already having from it.
Yeah, that's one thing that I've really found so remarkable about you is that I remember very shortly after Jack passed away, the amount of support that you were even offering other people and the olive branches that you were reaching out to people with and offering, so much love and kindness and support, which is, very is common for us to do that. But I was so surprised that you were really putting yourself out there to help as many people as you could when you were so early on in your
Thank
grief
you.
and suffering. Um, and that's kind of where you're wanting to head now, isn't it? In the future, is to
hmm
actually really start helping people and talk about that, because I mean that still blows my mind. It's incredible.
Well, thank you. I really just even now, like I see so many people and hear so many people talking about the symptoms that they're having with their grief and talk about their flashbacks and what they're going through. And since I've done the healing sessions with you, I just always think like I wish they knew about this and I wish that they knew how to do this to help them. So that's really been, and like you have really been a big inspiration for me because I want to keep on helping people and teaching people what you've taught me and because I never thought that anything was going to help me feel better or get out of the place that I was in. And even with all of the people around me and even with therapy, it still didn't feel like anything was actually helping until I started my healing sessions with you. So that's really, ever since he passed, I knew I wanted to do something to either prevent suicide or help other people. And just working with you has really given me like that focus and that push to want to do that.
That's lovely. Thank you. Yeah, that's kind of like my mission as well, is that, of course, like doing the one-on-one healing, I always kind of put that intention, sorry, behind it, that really hoping that it will pass out and spread out a little bit further, kind of like that ripple effect.
hmm
Okay, so one of, yeah, I guess like, so where do you even start with this? So um Jack and spirit. And this is something that like heavily needs to be normalized when we've lost somebody well, either to suicide or not, but in grief. So finding Jack in spirit, so were you ever spiritually inclined before? Did you have much spiritual practice? Had you ever felt spirit around or anything like that? What was your life like before spiritually?
So I never was super, I guess, like aware of how we could connect with people that have crossed in spirit. I'd always been open to the idea that, spirits are still here and we can still get signs from them. And I always believed in that, but I also always thought that it was kind of like something you had to go see a medium for, or, it was like just rare
Yeah.
occurrences. Like some people might be able to connect with people, but I didn't realize like how really everyone can do it if you know the correct ways to do it. And I remember like right after Jack passed, like, I was just, like, reaching and trying to find any way that I could know that he was still here and, be able to connect with him, and that's, I think, how, we got connected was that it was on Facebook, and you asked if I had tried connecting with him in spirit, and right away, I was like, "Anything that I can do that'll help me feel like he's still here and feel closer to him." So I was definitely open to it, absolutely, but I just didn't know anything about doing it myself.
But you had felt him before we started working together, hadn't you? Did you not?
Mhm.
You felt him around and then you had a few visits from him in your dreams.
Yeah, I did, and I felt like his presence was still around me. I would feel like someone was touching my arm, or I would feel like I heard him talking to me. And right before we had our first session, I did have a dream where it felt so real, and it was like a visitation dream from him. And so I definitely had like those encounters and those experiences. Yeah,
And then now you're even having visits from my brother. I'm so sorry about that.
I know. I know, they must be friends on the other side, the other
Yeah,
brothers, sending me things to tell you.
it's starting to become like a bit of a running joke now because everybody's relaying messages to me from my brother. So anyways, I'm super glad that you can hear him and that you can relay the messages back. So
Well, I kind of felt left out at first because you were saying how other people were getting messages from your brother, and I hadn't gotten one yet, so then he sent me one.
and it was really weird because the day that so the message was take the class, wasn't it?
Mhm.
Yeah, so that was because I was actually looking at starting to study again with a different mediumship teacher. And
Oh, really?
yeah, so I wanted to, now I am, but I was looking at the course and, I already have so much on that I was kind of like, should I take the classes or not? Maybe I wait until next year. But, because I receive messages all the time, but sometimes it's not, I mean, I have mediumship skills like anyone, but I'm not a refined medium and I would love to
Mhm.
be. And so sometimes like you get these messages and sometimes, you can feel a little bit like, should I say it or not? What if I'm wrong? Or if I upset them? Or what if,
Mhm.
yeah. So anyways, that was the point. And so when you messaged me and said, take the class, I was like, I mean, how do you know that? It's
Oh,
just so
wow. Yeah, no, it was my Jack telling me that your Jack sent that message when I had the dream about it,
ah,
and he didn't tell me what it was, he just said, like, "You have to tell Becky to take the class," and he was very adamant about it, and I was kind of like, "Okay, I'll tell her, I get it." But he said over and over, "You have to tell her to take the class. Both of
yeah.
us want her to take the class."
Okay, so when we met, you didn't really have very many resources in terms of like how to help yourself with the flashbacks, hallucinations, panic, and
Mm-mm.
things like that. So, or maybe I'm wrong. Did you have any resources there to kind of help you out, the tangible things to help?
No, I really didn't, and really, like, the only advice I was getting from people was just take care of yourself, take it minute by minute, which is helpful, but it
Yeah.
doesn't help get rid of the flashbacks.
Yeah, of course. And so it didn't take long for your flashbacks to go down. But in terms of all of the resources that you have now, because they're yours, like we can keep going over them together and we can do our sessions together, which are incredible. But in terms of actually you now and your waking life and every day, do you feel like you're using these resources and do you feel like you're being able to help yourself heal and connect and what has your experience been now with actually learning them and using them?
It's definitely been just life-changing, with the flashbacks, if I do happen to have one now, which, now, like, if I ever do have one, it's not just out of nowhere, it's, something that's caused me to have it, and, I can say, "Okay, I'm having a flashback. This isn't really happening right now. I'm not really stuck in this moment right now." So I can kind of ground myself, and then, the EFT tapping has been really useful for me to just help pull myself out of it. So that's, it's completely different from before where I was just stuck in it, and I kind of had to stay stuck in it, um, until it decided to pass or decided to stop on its own because I didn't know how to pull myself out of it. So just having like that safety again in myself and having that power again in myself to do it is really, really helpful.
Yeah. And then do you find as well that the actual clearing and the trauma releasing and clearing all of this energy, and that you've been able to connect to Jack stronger?
Yes, definitely. I mean, even in our first session, I just went into it with an open mind and I didn't really know what to expect or what was going to happen. But even in that first one, I felt so connected to him and I felt like I could hear him talking to me. And that's continued since then. And it's really made me feel like he is still here, which he is, but it's just constantly reminded me that I can still communicate with him and connect with him now. Where before, I felt his presence, but I felt like he was so far away and like I wasn't ever going to have that again. So it's completely changed for me.
After Jack passed away, Carly, did you ever feel like you also wanted to leave?
It wasn't that I wanted to leave, it was just didn't want to face like the rest of my life without him.
Yeah,
Um,
same.
just because we had planned to spend our lives together and I was just so lost and I felt so alone. So I was just terrified of having so long until I could see him again or until I could talk to him again. Which now, like, I know that that's not true, but at first it felt like I just had like an eternity of being alone, is what it felt like. And that was really scary for me.
Yeah, same. I didn't want to leave. I just didn't know how to stay. And it was
Hmm.
almost felt like it would be easier to leave and harder to stay. But yeah, obviously I'm so glad that I worked through that, because it's real, and it's raw and it's very, very real. And that's why so many people obviously understandably feel like they want to take their lives afterwards, because it can feel so hard to stay.
Hmm.
I always feel like now, I mean, there's this real like spiritual side of me, and this vibration keeps me, it kind of like buys me time. I feel in a really good space, and energy wise and everything like that. And I'm always just listening to my heart and like what feels good. And then sometimes there's that real like grief wave that comes, and it's just very human, and it's like
Hmm.
my life sucks and I just want to sleep and I don't want to come out of my room and I just want to hide under my blanket. And that I find now that like it's kind of this dance, because I can feel when that mood is coming, or when it's
Hmm.
starting to be really painful. But I think the blessing is now is that having that choice to live between the worlds of like being here, but then also going into that elevated state of awareness, or going through breath work or Reiki or energy healing, and then being able to connect to the other side and being able to connect to them. And then I feel like I don't know about you, but I always feel like it tops me up. Like when I'm there and I'm in that space, like they just fill my body up with so much light that even though I'm exhausted, I come out of it feeling like I could run a marathon, because I just feel like I've re-energized. And then
Hmm.
I kind of feel on that high vibration again for a while. Have you experienced anything like that?
Oh yeah, definitely. Especially like with the breath work sessions, even if I had been feeling like especially down after, because I think there were a few times where I had said like the days leading up to our sessions, I felt really just depressed and really like sad again. But then, like you said, it's just kind of like a rush of energy and of love that you're getting. And I think that just is a reminder of how like the other side just wants the best for us and how they always are sending us love, and that's just showing all of the support that they have for us because they know that maybe we need it a little bit extra during those times. But yeah, I definitely have felt the like kind of energy buzz after it and just feeling like refreshed almost.
Yeah. What would you say to others? Because it's quite common that people will say um, they felt like their loved one was around a lot more in the beginning, and then they felt like they had, kind of disappeared, or they left them. Um, what would you kind of, because you also felt a little bit like that as well, didn't you? Remember you said, I think Jack was here a lot more, and then I feel like he's kind of created a bit of distance. But knowing what you know now, in terms of obviously working through that pain and working through the emotions to try and to transcend them into a higher vibration. What would you say to others that also worry about that?
I think that it's important to remember that in like the early days after someone passes away, you do need them a lot closer because it's so intense and there's just so much change going on. So I think that they probably are a little bit closer to us then, but also if they do feel like they're farther away after, it probably is just that you're learning how to connect with them better or you're learning how to manage yourself better now, which is a good thing because it means that you're learning how to take care of yourself and how to work through it. But I don't think it's necessarily that they're getting far away. I think it's just that we don't need to lean on them as much because it's moving away from the more intense part of it.
Yeah, that's a good point actually. Okay, so have you got your views, or have you, thought about going forwards, like how we see the world at the moment and how more and more people are taking their lives, especially someone now, I read every 40 seconds. Have you like given space to really think about what needs to be changed going forwards? And I mean, I know that every situation is so unique, but it's getting worse. And what, like, yeah, like how is this happening? And it keeps happening, it's getting worse, and there's just more and more people that are passing over. And do you have your own views on what you think needs to change going forward?
Yeah, I definitely think that, especially with men, it needs to be more normalized to talk about mental health, because I don't think that's something that's really talked about as much as it should be right now, and I think that can probably lead to a lot of people feeling alone. Um, I also think that stuff like breath work and Reiki and what we've done is really important because there's always the signs to look for if someone is depressed or thinking about taking their own life. But like in my situation, there were no signs and there wasn't any type of warning leading up to it. And it makes me feel like if people have this kind of like toolkit that we have and this breath work and things that can help them deal with past traumas that they may not even realize they're holding on to. It can put them in a better situation and set them up for, not having that onset of just not being there mentally and wanting to take your own life. And I think it can really prevent that if people know how to do more of this.
Yeah, that's what I think as well, that practices like this, and these inner resources that we already have, is that they shouldn't even really be used or looked at as preventative tools, but in fact is something that's like you get up and you brush your teeth every day. And it's kind of like how,
Mhm.
now we say like meditation, if you do 10 minutes of meditation a day, but in terms of actually working with your energy and release, just like how, one will go for exercise and things like that, they're actually normalizing and bringing these kind of methods and techniques into everybody's, like health and wellness, because then
Mhm.
we can get to that point before prevention. It just
Mhm.
the kind of, I mean, missing out that big gap of worried prevention, because we're already so in tune with ourselves and so self-aware and
Mhm.
doing a lot of our own clearing. And I think that, I mean, the more people that obviously do a lot of that work themselves and a lot of their inner work and healing, like, do you feel better equipped now yourself, if, with a friend or anyone, if they would come to you with issues? And hopefully they don't right now, because you've not long been in this position, so,
Yeah.
but I mean, going forward.
Oh, definitely. I mean, I didn't know a lot about this work before I started doing the healing sessions with you, but it's been so just life changing for me. And it's something that, like, I wish I could just tell, like, every single person that's going through this or another trauma because I know we both understand, like, it feels like it's never going to get better and, like, you're never going to come out of that hole of grief, but I know it sounds so cliche, but it does get better if or at least gets more manageable, when you know how to use these tools, and I definitely feel like now or in the future, if someone were to reach out to me, at least would be able to put them in the right direction and at least kind of, like, tell them what they should start learning about or should start doing.
How do you look at the world now, like your world, after what you and Jack have gone through? You know, like, does the world look different to you how it used to before Jack passed over?
I think it does. I think just with having more awareness now, and I think I just before didn't even see like the world fully like how I do now. And I feel more connected to it, and I feel like I notice more things. And even if it's just like being out in nature and outside, I feel like I notice like different ways that we are connecting with the universe that I didn't realize before. So it's really changed for me, and even just like being around other people, if I know them or not, I feel like it's easier to pick up on their energies too, and pick up on if they're going through something. I think I'm definitely more sensitive to that now too.
Yeah, you can see people, can't you, a lot clearer, and you can read between the lines, and you're picking up on those non-verbal cues a lot stronger. And I think
Hmm.
your heart opens so much more to other people's pain or suffering, or the truth, you know, like you read between the lines a lot more about what's happening. And you definitely do seem to stand in your truth a lot more than before. It's hard to kind of be swayed one way or another after you've gone through something that's just so horrific. Um,
Hmm.
and so what does it feel like when Jack's around? Like, what is the, give us like, because again, this is also different. Like, what does that general feeling feel like in your body when you know, like, I'm in, Jack's here?
I don't even really know like how to describe it. It's just like like you said, like an inner feeling. Like I just know that he's here. Like it's just like an inner knowing. And it's not like and sometimes it is like I might feel like someone's touching my arm or touching my hand or something like that. But most of the time it's just like if I would be home before and he were in the other room, or if he were doing something over there while I was here, then it feels the same now.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
even though he isn't here physically, it just like it feels like he's here.
Yeah. And what's that, how has that been received with others around you as well? Because when Jack passed away, and I was saying to people, no, you don't understand, like, Jack's still alive. It's just that he doesn't have his body. And everyone, well, not everyone, but a few people be like, oh yeah, okay, all right. Well, as long as that makes you feel better. And it used to frustrate me because it was like you was just talking to a brick wall, and also at the same time confusing, because I would think, maybe am I going crazy? Am I losing my mind? And then finding the right
Hmm.
people and the right teachers and stuff, and obviously strengthening the skills. But how has it been received? Yeah, in like in your field.
I think it's been received pretty well, which I don't know, maybe that could be just people like listening to me talk about it. I don't know, but I think at first people are like, yeah, okay, like he'll always be here, but then I'm like, no, you don't understand.
No,
Like if
he's
we,
actually
if
here.
we, yeah, and I'm like, if we like raise our energy, then it's more like on their energy level. And then like I mean I could talk for like an hour straight about all of it, but I think once I start like explaining it and explain kind of like how the universe is all connected and how this work like brings us closer to them, then they're like, oh wow, okay. That like it actually makes sense to them then, instead of
Yeah.
me just getting like, yeah, he'll always be here with you, or the normal things that people will say. So yeah, I think it's been received pretty well, and especially like since I've been like talking to my friends and family about like the details of it and just the details of like the work that we've been doing. They all think it's so interesting because they had never learned about it before, and
Yeah.
they've all been just super interested, and they think it's so cool like how we can stay connected to them even after they've crossed over.
It means everything though, doesn't it? Yeah, I just can't imagine what life would feel like if didn't if I didn't have that.
Hmm.
Yeah, I'm sure you still find your way, but just the feeling of it just makes me feel, yeah, very, very sad, and
Yeah.
just feels very disconnected. um it really does mean everything when you know that they're around. And it's like the more you trust, the more you get as well, right? Have you
Oh yeah.
experienced like synchronicities and serendipities and things like that since?
Yeah, definitely. Like I've ever since he passed, almost immediately I started getting signs from him, and it's it's definitely different when you get one and you just know that it's your person sending you a sign. And even like before we started doing our sessions, I would feel like I could still like hear him talking to me, and which it probably was, but I just didn't even realize it then. I was like, I'm going crazy and I haven't slept at all, so I'm like hearing him talk to me still. But yeah, I've definitely experienced that, and um I've still been getting signs from him all of the time.
Yeah. And so for you now, I just did you know, you knew quite early on, didn't you, that your life was going to change in terms of work and like how and your studies and what you do in the future? Um
Hmm.
and so yeah, what does that look like for you? Like what would you like to get involved in going forward?
So I was actually really excited to tell you about this.
Oh,
So
wow.
I decided that I'm going to apply for a social work program.
Amazing.
And kind of like my end goal is to be a social worker, but also incorporate what I've learned from you, and study into that more and be able to kind of expand that onto people that I work with. But I was
Oh,
excited to tell you about it
amazing.
because of that. And I also, I've been kind of like thinking like if I should really do it, if I should like really apply for it. And then I went online to look, for when the deadline was to apply, and it was actually, or it's actually mine and Jack's anniversary
Oh,
is
wow,
the
there you
date that the
go.
application is due. Yeah. So I was like, well, I have to do it now. Yeah, I'm really excited about it. A completely different traumatic situation that
Yeah.
they're experiencing, the same tools could still
Oh,
be used to
100%.
help them through that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. Amazing. Oh, good for you.
Yeah.
And you'll find now as
Thank
well
you.
that like once you've made these decisions from your heart and you're on that right path and it's just not the path of resistance, and everything was, it would just be very easy, and it would just it'll be in that flow, you know, it won't be you won't be, yeah, climbing over lots of obstacles and finding it really hard and resistance. So yes, that's great. And also you can always do your muscle testing to find out that you're on the right track, but
Right.
you already know that anyway.
Right.
Um, okay, so I guess like I always like to ask, like, what would you say to anybody who's going through what we've been through, that is in their early days of grief after they've just lost somebody that they love?
I would definitely say take it minute by minute at first. And that's really all you can do. I mean, I hardly ate for almost 3 weeks and
Yeah.
hardly slept for, I mean, I still haven't had normal sleep, but it's getting better. Um, but I would definitely tell people to just listen to your body, at least try to take care of your body. And then once you're ready, um, to start doing the type of work that we've been doing, because like I said, that really was like the turning point for me, and really it was like the first thing that felt like it gave me a little bit of relief was doing our work. And yeah, I would just tell them just to take it minute by minute, and if there are people that are offering to take care of them, to let them do that, because it's so hard to take care of yourself during those first few days and weeks. It's just, it feels like you can't do anything at all. Um, and now, like, I wish I would have known back then, like, just how much more manageable it can get, because it doesn't necessarily ever get better, but you learn how to manage, the harder days, and how to feel better on the easier days too. Um, so that I wish I could just tell everybody that, is that it doesn't feel like it's ever going to end, but there are things that you can do that can lighten it a lot, and that can make you just feel more like yourself again.
Yeah, I think that's really good advice, because I really think it's so sink or swim. And I feel like
Mm.
there's majority of the time you're sinking. And that's why it's just so important to have really good tools in place that you can really start working with this energy, because otherwise this sinking can just go so deep. And yeah, it's not
Mhm.
about getting over it, or you know, or one day you're going to wake up and everything's fine, but it's just that incrementally every time that you choose to swim and you release more and you release more and you work with the energy, you know, you're giving yourself kind of that fighting chance to gasp for air. And then over time, I just really feel like obviously you expand so much, but having these tools almost can kind of become your lifeline in the earlier days. I wish that I found them sooner than what I did, but hey ho, it's fine. I just I completely agree, minute by minute.
Mhm.
And
And
there's
it's hard
just,
to remember that because it's so consuming. Um, Especially like right after it happens, it's the only thing that you feel or the only thing that you can think about. Um, but yeah, it feels like it'll never end. But I think if people had these tools to work with, then it definitely could at least get them relief a lot sooner. So they don't have to stay like in that such dark, heavy place that they're in.
oh, and it's such a scary place to be. I was there for a long time and it was just so, so, so scary. But I think that, yeah, it's all of us are on our own unique journeys and we'll be there for as long as until we're ready or not. And there's so many different things that can help us get out of it. But yeah, thank you so much, Carly.
Thank you so much. You've just, like I said, you've completely just changed my life completely. And, I was in that dark place and it felt like it never was going to end for me. And the work that you've taught me and done with me has just really made the world's difference in how this has been for me.
You know what? Like it's really beautiful for you to say that, but I thank you as well because you did this, you are going to help so many people. And I think that's the most beautiful thing is that when somebody has, started this kind of healing, you want to share it with other people, and it also just becomes really natural, whatever job you're in, or we're designed to connect and always be with other people, and just knowing that that's the kind of energy and knowledge and wisdom that you have now to help other people in today's world when, like, God knows we need it. And so I'm so super grateful because it's really hard to move through this suffering. It's really courageous to work with it. It's quite scary and it's daunting and it's odd. And sometimes there's so much guilt behind the word healing and like, do I even deserve it? Should I do it? What's the point? Like there's so many things. But yeah, it's like it gives me goosebumps now to just think that that out of this complete mess and this pain and this trauma, that there's just doses and ounces of light and hope that you're going to be spreading onto other people, which is it's the best we can do.
Well, thank you so much.
Okie dokie. All right, love, I'll speak to you soon. Thank you.
All right. Thank
Bye.
you.